Ciao. Ciao.
Actually, no. You. Me when good card is good. No!
Hey everyone, this is Carbon. I bring you another standard match. So once again, this is another video from that same day where I forgot to bring my camera to locals, so apologies for the quality. But we're going to go ahead and hop into it pretty quickly, considering my friend forgot to hit record. So we're actually hopping into the match and on the middle of turn 3. So we do actually have former Dragold enthusiast Darren on the left, playing Levidras, which is his newest deck of choice. And on the right, we do have him going up against a very old favorite of mine, Avanttgarda, who has really been on struggle streak for like the longest time, pretty much since set 12 in my opinion. But anyways, let's go ahead and see how Avanttgarda does against one of the best decks of the format. So we did actually have Avanttgarda going second there, obviously just riding up to grade 1. Riding up for Avanttgarda to grade 1, swinging and passing. We do see Darren go for a bit more of an aggressive play, calling down the Foxhole and the Gabrag. Definitely something that you can kind of do when you are playing Levidras, assuming that your opponent doesn't really have much access to removal here. Which unfortunately is not entirely true, because Avanttgarda technically does have access to removal. It's just not really that great at it. But anyways, we do actually see a little bit of a damage deny play here, swinging the Vanguard in at that Gabrag, kind of just denying the CB here, which is not always like the worst play, because technically speaking, Levidras does need a counterblast in order to use the Foxhole. They might want to use the counterblast for a Huli, but in this situation, usually like the first grade 3 Levidras turn, at least in the way I play it, tends to not be that powerful. It doesn't really do a whole bunch here. But anyways, we do actually see the base Levidras off the top 7 there. Going to be placing the 3 markers, one on the back row, one on the opponent's front row, and one on the opponent's back row behind the Vanguard, because for those of you who are not aware, Avanttgarda is a deck that does actually rely on that Vanguard booster quite a bit here. But we do actually see the Sharmknot coming on up from the drop zone, I guess we can call it. We see the Habitat being played there, calling out the Avanttgarda. So we kind of do already have the kind of perfect Levidras turn 3 setup here. Realistically, you only really need the Avanttgarda and the Sharmknot. You're perfectly fine just doing like 3 attacks here. Like, at least in my opinion, I always play it pretty conservatively. This ends up being like my attack pattern most of the time. But we're just going to swing in. Obviously, we can't use the Foxhole because, you know, no CB. But Avanttgarda is already sitting at 2 damage here. So probably don't want to be taking a whole lot of whole lot of damage here. But it looks like we're going to be taking the Vanguard swing. Hitting into a critical trigger there. Going to be pushing Avanttgarda to 4. But we do actually see a defensive there, which is going to make these last 2 attacks a little bit easier to guard. This Avanttgarda at 30 is going to be guarded with just a 15k guard there. And then, of course, the Sharmknot swinging in for the 33 with the extra power from that trigger is also going to be pretty easily guarded with another 15k. That's defensive there coming in real clutch. But, you know, in this situation, you are really far behind. Like, here, the damage is 0 to 4, so you've got to do whatever you can to catch up, which, you know, if you get a couple criticals off of these drive checks, is going to be, you know, at least helpful. Hopefully you can at least push them to 2 by the end of this turn. We do see the Death Winds being searched out there. Can we? Oh wait, that's the Death Winds. The other one is called Dusting. I'm slowly remembering. But looks like we're actually going to go ahead and retire the Foxhole using the Kill Shroud, which is definitely not like it's not a bad play. Like, that Foxhole is kind of annoying. And, you know, you kind of do force them to have it, but you are also giving yourself a little bit of less power on your Vanguard swing, which you kind of do need. But looks like we're actually going to go straight away for Richter, calling down that, whatever his name is, I forget. And then just riding into the Richter, and actually going to be using the skill of the Richter to put the Kill Shroud into the Soul, allowing us to get, you know, a couple of attacks here. Unfortunately, we are still under Avanttgarda's on-hit restriction, so even if we do swing in, there is only guaranteed an extra 5k to the front row. If the attack hits, you can get another 5k, but obviously you're going to be losing that skill once you do Superior Ride into the bound Avanttgarda. So swinging this first attack for 23, you know, decently powerful attack. Probably don't want to commit 2 cards to guard that, because that is generally a 2-card guard. But you're not really in any danger here as a Levidras player. Like, you do need the damage, so like you might as well take it. Like, yeah, you're giving the opportunity to get more drive checks and potentially hit like crits. But at the same time, you do need the damage, and it's really not that threatening. Like, even if you had hit a double trigger there, you would have been pushed to 3, which maybe is a little scary, but you know, you can handle that. And it's not actually going to matter, because off of these 3 drive checks, we are going to see absolutely dry drive checks. So even though this Avanttgarda is scaling a little bit in terms of power, we're not actually going to be really doing that much damage. As we do Superior Ride, discarding that new card from, what was it, set 4, EB3, in order to add back the Dusting to hand that we discarded for cost. Just making it so that, you know, Avanttgarda doesn't really minus that much. But her real benefit is the fact that she is another copy of the lady there, where she just like a big bungus attacker. As looks like we're going to go ahead and go for the 2 to pass on the second Vanguard swing, and then just take this lady's attack with the 48k. Not really worth guarding, especially since, you know, Avanttgarda saw literally 0 drive checks off of those 4 drive checks, which is kind of surprising. Guess maybe Shuffle Diff? I don't know. But looks like Darren's going to be starting off with a Persona Ride there. It looks like we have another one in hand, so we're all set for, you know, the next 3 turns, or however long this match ends up actually going. Going to be Soul Blasting 1 to call back out the Charmnet. Doing this in the correct order, because you do see we have the Habitat there, and you always want to call out the Charmnet before you do activate the Habitat, because like in case that you actually do call a Charmnet and like you don't have a better call target, you can always just, you know, have double Charmnet, which is never like the worst play. Like, they're just really strong attackers. But looks like we're actually going to be replacing that Foxhole that we did lose during that last turn. So we're all set up to do our 5 attacks if we do want it. We will need a way to get that Avanttgarda back, which, you know, shouldn't be that difficult. We've got things like Huli. We did actually see, I think, another Avanttgarda off of that Habitat, so shouldn't be too hard to get ourselves set up here. So it looks like we're going to go ahead and commit the Avanttgarda from hand. We'll be checking those top 2 cards of the deck. We see a PG and a Squirrel. We're going to be putting the PG on top, adding the Squirrel to hands. And I do believe we have everything like completely set up, the perfect setup turn. Looks like we're going to be using that extra Persona Ride to deploy just 3 markers, putting them on the other back row so that we are ready for Squirrel in the next turn. And just putting 2 more markers on, you know, the remaining circles, just like shutting down that column basically. And then of course we do have the Divine skill here. Going to be using it to place a couple of markers, obviously 1 in our front row, and filling out the final unused circle there, and leaving Avanttgarda with a full field of nothing but Infinity Eyes markers. So it looks like we're going to fill out the rest of the board with another Charmnet from hand, as well as the Squirrel there. So now things are I would say a little bit complicated. Like, I always get confused when I have to do double Charmnet, because I'm like, what do I retire? Like, I don't want to retire the Foxhole because I kind of need that dude. But all at the same time, like, you kind of want the power and the draw, and it's so good. But anyways, swinging in the Vanguard, getting PG'd, swinging in the Avanttgarda for the 30k. Going to be blocking that with the 15k as well as the intercept. Swinging in the Squirrel for a very massive 71 here. Just like putting so much power. I believe we used the Foxhole skill on that Squirrel, who is going to be able to, you know, move over to the Charmnet column. We see a proxy being damage check there. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Maybe if the Avanttgarda player sees this video, they can go ahead and comment what that was supposed to be. But anyways, we see the Squirrel moving over, swinging in by itself with the 48k there. So it looks like we're going to opt to, you know, just do 2 attacks, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is the correct play, because, you know, your opponent's already at 5 damage here. So you could make like 1 big attack here, but it's a little bit risky considering, you know, they have the ability to PG that and kind of just waste a full attack there. But looks like we're throwing down a bunch of 5k guards here. And it looks like it turns out like it's not actually going to be enough to guard it. So we're just going to be taking that. But turns out we had a 6 damage heal right on top. But, you know, we still have 1 more attack to guard, which is going to be at 43. Looks like all we're going to do is go ahead and just PG that with the discarding that other grade 3 or grade 1, whatever it is. Anyways, retiring the Squirrel for the Charmet, so basically clearing your board, just keeping that Fox around. Definitely makes sense. Like, Squirrel is kind of a, what's it called? Like, an extra, like, it's just the whipped cream on top. You don't necessarily need it. But we do actually see Avanttgarda finally able to get its engine going with a Persona Ride, which is kind of the main reason that the deck is really struggling right now, which is that, you kind of just have to wait till turn 4 in order to actually do anything, and you have to have all your combo pieces set up. But it looks like we are looking to be pretty decent here. We've got the Richter set up. The one unfortunate thing here is that we did kind of blow our load on all those orders last turn. We put them all to soul, and now we aren't going to be able to use Avantgarda's skill twice. We're just going to have to choose which order we're going to be using. We did add the Dusting, and Dusting is definitely like not a bad order to use in this situation. I would say it locks out Elementaria, but you can clearly see it's just like literally staring you in the face there in the damage zone. So it's not going to be preventing that. But we do finally see the Hanada Hathaway there. Going to be counterblasting the one to just draw the card. I guess we're just digging in. Calling another good booster here, that 13k. Just adding the Persona Ride back to our hand there. So we do have a play for next turn, I suppose, assuming we live that long. But we're going to just swing in at the Vanguard, spreading out power to the front row. Did we use Death Winds or did we use Dusting? I completely missed that. But anyways, we're swinging this 38. Now, this is technically a little bit of a risky play because, like, if your opponent hits double crit, you do kind of die here. But, Avanttgarda is not really good at hitting triggers. So, literally nothing off of the drive check there. So, that's so far 6 blank drive checks out of Avanttgarda. And we do actually see a defensive for Levidras, so that's going to make all these attacks that much easier. So now this one you do have to guard, because like if you finally do see a crit off the top, you choose to die here. So we do see finally the first trigger drove checked, and giving the power to that lady over there, because obviously this Richter isn't going to be sticking around for very long, as we decide to just discard 2 cards and Superior Ride the Avanttgarda from our bind zone. And then, of course, that is going to give us our final drive check, which, once again, as a Levidras player, you do have to guard. The one thing I will say for this is you're noticing that Levidras has a really, really small hand. This is, primarily because, we haven't actually been swinging with the rear guard, so we're not able to draw cards off of the Infinity Eyes markers. But, of course, this final drive check going to be nothing. Guarded with that OT, which is going to be just, like, too much for Avanttgarda to break on its own. It's only at 33, and it only has 1 drive check. So now we're kind of in a little bit of a stare down. Do we want to try and risk it and swing with these other columns? Because they are pretty big at this point. Like, you're under Persona Ride, plus 15k to each of the front rows with 13k boosters. But it all depends on what Levidras is able to actually draw off the top from those Infinity Eyes markers. But it looks like we're actually going to opt to not attack, deciding, yeah, the only way we can live this is if we keep his hand size low. But on that note, we do actually see the OG Levidras being ridden for a nice little Persona Ride there. Probably just looking to get that extra power buff to close out the rest of the match. I mean, like, your opponent's at 5. They have 2 intercepts. They use, like, 2 PGs already. Your chances of, like, killing this turn are pretty good. As we're going to be counterblasting 1 for Levidras's skill there. Placing 1 marker on each column. But in this instance, I don't think we have enough defensive power on the Avanttgarda side at this stage in the game to actually contend with the continuous power that Levidras is just able to, dish out with those Infinity Eyes markers. Give a continuous 10k is. Anyways, we see the full board being filled out here with the Avanttgarda. We got the Huli. We've even got a base Levidras there, so that's pretty cool. We're actually going to end up swinging with the Avanttgarda first, which is, I guess, a little interesting, but honestly, it doesn't really matter in this instance. Going to be swinging, giving the Levidras there the ability to attack from the back row. Swinging for 38. Technically a little bit of a power decrease because, Imperio does get an extra 10k from, or 5k for each of the base Levidrases. But we're going to be guarding that with OT, making this a no pass here, or OT to pass, I guess. But we already used that. But we see a critical trigger off the top. Going to give that power to the Charmet there. Swinging in for 53 for 3 damage. Only a couple cards in hand, and it's looking like we're going to go ahead and PG that, but I don't really think it's going to matter because, you know, we still got 2 more attacks here. We can guard that one, and we can guard the Levidras, but it looks like Lahuli is going to finish us off. So that is going to be the end of the game. I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to do those 2 things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.